When I restarted this OU vlog earlier in the year, I had to come to terms like, if you're going to start this vlog, OU is going to drop some games. And at some point, you're going to have to record one of these post-game videos of your reaction and your analysis of OU dropping a game. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it appears that time has come. I'm not dodging any of my crow. I'm not dodging doing my post-game video and congratulating the Baylor Bears. We actually went to the game yesterday, and I didn't arrive back at my house until about 1:30 in the morning. That means we were on the road probably about 9 hours yesterday, making a day trip of it. It's a bummer when you lose the game and you have to make that long of a drive, especially when you pay about $100 to attend that game on average. But hey, still, I wasn't going to make a video last night at 1:30 in the morning, so I waited till today to do so. So, like I said, I want to dive right in. I want to congratulate the Baylor Bears for upsetting us yesterday. Sean, Gavin, and I on my Sunday night live streams have been saying all year, if there was a game to circle this year, it was coming off a bye week against Dave Renanda and his Baylor Bears at this point. If they were going to drop a game, this was going to be it. Baylor has kind of become the new thorn in OU's side as of late, something they inherited from Tech and K-State of days past at this point. Baylor came very, very prepared against us and quite frankly outcoached us on every facet of the football game. It reminded me a lot of 2012 of Notre Dame, where the game could have gone on in either direction at any point if one of the teams got one of the key plays. Fun fact, I was at that one too. And unfortunately, it looked like the pendulum swung in Baylor's direction at this point. Even with that said, it just seemed like Baylor had control of the entire game at that point. So again, I want to give Baylor all the congrats in the world. Congratulations for upsetting us, and good luck for y'all for the rest of the season. Despite that said, despite many of Sooner Nation wanting to gather their pitchforks and their torches for this loss, honestly, I'm actually indifferent about it. Sure, I left disappointed that we lost. Again, mostly because I spent $100 for this ticket to see OU only score 7 points. I don't really count that last touchdown. That was garbage time touchdown. So I feel like I didn't get my money's worth, but it is what it is at that point. That's the risk you take with it. But to me, it's an expectation that we've had that we're going to drop a game badly every year, and we just don't know when it's going to be. This year, it just happened to be in championship November. Usually, we drop one of these games in October. It kind of sucks that we waited a couple weeks to do so, but we're just right back to square one where we usually are every year, of in desperate mode, making sure we can try to win out at this point. I think that does say something, however, about the state of your program when the general feel is you have an expectation to lose and you're very, very indifferent on it. Me personally, I think it's personal growth that you accept that losing is just part of the game and that streaks are meant to be broken. You go play any sport, you go play any esport, play any board game, casual, online, on any video game. You realize there are going to be winners and losers, and there's nothing to be ashamed about of losing to number 13 on the road at their house. Back in my college years, I think I received my humbling moment for that when we lost to RG3. Additionally, years ago, as a college student, I would have been very, very upset that we lost to Baylor, especially because that was the first time we lost to Baylor, was that RG3 year. But again, you have to keep in context, guys, that this is not the Baylor of 10 years ago. This is the Baylor of now. And by 10 years ago, I mean a little bit more than that, when Baylor is basically what Kansas is today at this point. They're a respectable program right now, and you have to accept that they just are playing very, very good football at this point. However, I always keep in mind that this wasn't an embarrassing loss like that. What you can be upset about is when you're just invested in a program and you just shrug and just say, it is what it is. That's when you know that at least the surface level, from both a fan's perspective and a team's perspective, that is a problem. That is where it's embarrassing to lose, that everyone has been conditioned to react like that. Look, I know going undefeated is hard, and expecting your defense to carry you through that many games and expect like every drive to force a 3-0 out, it's just very unrealistic and just unfair to the team at all. Embarrassing, however, is that Baylor had a very, very solid game plan, but they didn't play their best either. It was very much, like I said, a tug of war. Yes, they had control of most of the game, but it was still very much a tug of war. And OU just could not capitalize on anything that they did yesterday. It was just Baylor's day to win at this point. That's where my dad used to say, like, any given day at that point. Yesterday was not any given day. OU just could not get out of their own way. And that's where I kind of want to go to is, so what went wrong? In my opinion, it all started, honestly, when they elected to get the ball first. I always believe that they need to get the ball second because you're still warming up and getting into your motions in the first half of the game. By the second game, you're already gelling and ready to go, as well as you're able to make the game time adjustments and fix any mistakes you had in the first half. The moment they did that, I just had a gut feeling that this was not going to go our way, or at least it was going to be much closer than what people wanted yet again. But outside of winning the coin toss, it was just completely downhill from there. We could just not gel at any point and get the ball going or have something going on the offense. Burkick was out of character and missed everything yesterday, and even had one of the rare ones where one of his kickoffs went out of bounds. We just kept shooting ourselves in the foot, guys. Like, that's just the hard reality we just got to face. It was just not our day. We can't forget that Caleb made a lot of freshman mistakes too. Maybe some of that was attributed to the Baylor player stepping on his hand. We'll never know at this point with it, but his throwing just was not on game. He did not make his reads well. There was plenty of time when he had open space, and I don't know if it was him not deciding to run or if that was one of Lincoln's calls on that. But regardless, he made a lot of mistakes on that, and that's kind of what you expect from a freshman quarterback at that time. Again, keep in mind, there is a difference between any given day and just getting straight up beat. By and large, this is, in my opinion, Riley's worst game he has ever coached, ever, as well as, I would say, probably one of the worst games I've ever attended with it. It was just bad. I can't forget Baylor, like when I said in my pregame video that players I mentioned that OU had to keep in mind, specifically Abram, Thornton, Bernard, whoever else I listed in that, they were there all day and they abused us all day. Like, Baylor just had the luck on their side at this point with it. So when you take a step back and you have to look at not just the game itself, you have to kind of go at this point, why is this team so inconsistent? Why is the offense having struggles into game 10, nearly the last third of the year? Why are we still having issues on defense? And you got to go back up the top and you got to start pointing the blame at Lincoln. At some point, enough is enough. And Lincoln, you got to start from the top. Since about 2019, Iowa State, the fact, to me, this is fact. It's not even opinion. That the fact is clear that Lincoln has been outcoached. Other coaches have figured out what his schemes are, whether it's in order to keep the ball, they have to sit on it and get the team frustrated and not be able to gel with time of possession, or they figured out that most of his play calling revolves around chuck and pray, a reverse or a flea flicker, and does not develop the passing game or the run game. If he gets into a bind, his calling of being a student of the air raid comes into play and becomes very one-dimensional and just passes the team to death. Just like yesterday, I was just baffled at why we were doing certain things instead of just like letting the players get some confidence, letting the game flow. They figured it out, and I think that it's time, Riley. It's time that you need to get over your pride and you need to hire an offensive coordinator, at the very least, to challenge your playmaking and your schemes at this point. I said this, guys, and I'm on video saying it as early as this year with Tulane, both on my pregame or postgame video and live stream, that Lincoln cannot handle second halves. And now I'm going to go as far to say that his game planning sucks. It's not even that, well, it's so-so or anything. No, it is garbage. Again, we had another week where the team came out flat. This was off a bye week. That's embarrassing. We had most of the team back, not including Theo Weiss and Woody Washington, and there was just no energy. That is embarrassing. When I was there, you could see Baylor hopping around, throwing rally towels around, and they were in it. Our sideline had no energy at all yesterday. They were very, very flat. And yet again, that's how they played on the field. They need to realize that just because they have an OU on the helmet, teams are not going to roll over to them and just let them win at this point, especially when you're moving to the SEC, I'm assuming probably in 2023 at this point. But regardless, they're going to bring your Super Bowl. Why they have not magically figured this out, I have no idea. let's not forget too that with the crappy game planning that we're playing now down to our opponent, it just baffles me that whatever the opponent is better on defense, that is what we play to and not the other one. I will never understand that, and it has been driving me nuts for several years now, and that's part of his game planning. And that goes into my next step of why we've lost one. We're kind of in life alert mode. We are in crisis mode. Why does it always have to be a disaster before OU begins to take their opponent seriously and we open up the playbook? Really, what is Riley waiting on? I personally think that there is not one this year, and that the playbook was just drain our opponent until they're worn out and then take advantage of that in the second half and win by a couple points. I really do believe there is no playbook. I haven't seen anything to give me the evidence of that. And if he is having a playbook that he's trying to wait for like playoffs, shame on you. Like, I'm sorry, there's no other way to say it. Open the playbook up, because then you're not putting your players at the position or the ability to win, which leads me into my next point of, honestly, do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of Kevin Wilson. Kevin, if you all recall, Kevin Wilson also had a historical offense and eventually left Norman because he kept trying to run the same playbook with the players that it did not work with, rather than developing a playbook that catered to them specifically. This is honestly what we had here too. Take yesterday. Riley substituted Rattlers out when it looked like we needed just something to spark the team and stuff from it. At the time, I thought it was it was due to his injured hand, but maybe it was just to try to spark something, see if something would change. The problem is the play calling was the exact same thing. It didn't cater to what Spencer Rattler is good at. It's literally the definition of insanity. And that only supports why we need an OC at this point, so Lincoln can be the head coach and manage the game at this point. I think it's needed. Like I said, earlier this year, I said this was the first year that Riley has struggled and had faced true adversity and that he was failing. You know, don't let the year record right now of 9-1 deceive you. I still stand by that decision. Riley has not at all lived up to the hype this year for it. And I think it's about time that he needs to act as the head coach. Riley, we saw yesterday, you're soft on your players. It's time to put your foot down and be the head coach and not their friend. It's time to make the players run laps. It's time to get these players to come out and energize. We see this. You can't lie when you see what stuff's on the field at this point. It's time to be the head coach, not the offensive coordinator. Look, the other part of it too is I know you didn't like when the fans rushed the field. I know you are a very competitive person. At the end of the day, if the NCAA really wanted to stop it, they would figure out a way, maybe nets or something like that. But that all aside, if you don't want that to happen, don't lose in someone else's house. Don't have that monkey on your back. You know you're that opponent that everyone's bringing their Super Bowl game to. You know this, Riley. This is not a surprise at this point. If you don't like it, you just got to suck it up and accept that's what the reality is. That's enough about Lincoln Riley. I do want to focus a little bit on Grinch as well, because I want to keep this video as short and sweet as possible while also bringing up the highlights of everything. So I will still stand by that Grinch is not the problem and that his scheme is not the problem. Defense came to play yesterday. The offense was the problem. The defense just finally got worn out when you have so many 3 and outs and no offensive identity at this point. They got worn out. There's only so much you can accept with that and only so much you can put blame on. But my goodness, Grinch, there is some very, very blatant Achilles heels with this team, and enough is enough. The biggest one is 3rd and 4th down conversions. That is at this point, we are on game 11. That is outright unacceptable at this point. Grinch, I don't know what you got to do. I don't know why the players are scared to go for the ball. Are they scared if they're going to be flagged? I don't know. For everything that you tout about playing aggressive, they are not playing aggressive. 3rd and 4th down when it's long. And I'm talking like not 3rd and 2 or 4th and 1. Those are, you kind of expect that they're going to convert that. I'm talking like 3rd and 35 or 3rd in another universe, and they're converting that. Like, that is unacceptable. Fix 3rd and 4th down. There is no excuses at this point for that. Player development as well is just lacking. I've said this back and forth that outside of the starters, players just do not seem like they are developing well. I would go as far as say that the entire team has regressed versus probably the Texas game, but we can argue that at the end of the season for that. There's still games we have to play at this point. But regardless, the players look sluggish. They always seem like they're a step behind the receiver or the running back. I know he's trying to rotate players in and out and keep them fresh, but at some point you got to go with your best guys. So that way you stop those big plays at this point. I don't know what it is with the development. It's bad in my opinion, which leads into the next one, tackling. Just like third and fourth down, that is unexcusable at this point that we are on game 11 and tackling is still a consistent issue. I know aggressiveness is his scheme and that his scheming is always towards like focusing on the trenches and takeaways while getting the occasional burned on the pass with it. But you got to teach your players to tackle. So many big plays were given up yesterday because so many players whiffed on tackles or were not able to tackle correctly. Teach them tackling, Grinch. That is your job. You're the head honcho at that point. Just like with Riley, when you have the offensive coordinator, you don't have one, that's on you. Grinch, this is on you. Get your coaches to teach them tackling. I don't care about the takeaways at this point. Teach them tackling and stop third and fourth down conversions. And finally, as I mentioned above, you got to quit rotating your guys. I'm at a loss of why we were pulling key players on very key plays. I understand like players could get lost, like Key Lawrence yesterday on one of them. I don't know what happened or why he got lost there with it, but at the end of the day, maybe it was due to the rotation of not being in there and not knowing the offense for Baylor. You got to quit rotating. Put your best guys out there and keep them out there. I understand you want to have fresh players in there to keep everything good to go, but you got to do that. You got to quit rotating guys on it, especially if they're missing big plays at this point. I could keep going on and on at this point, but that's kind of the main points. That is, in my opinion, why we lost the game yesterday. Yes, we can keep accountable that, yes, the players have to make the tackles, but if they're not being taught the tackling, that falls on the guys at the top. At some point, enough is enough. When is the change going to happen? And when are the excuses of we're getting close going to stop? So where do you go to from here at this point? Well, for OU, there's no time to mope around. You still have Iowa State. You still have Oklahoma State on deck. You have Iowa State at home next week for senior night. And you have Oklahoma State for Bedlam. You don't have time to mope about. You don't have time to try to course correct. You got to do it now. You got to focus. You got to have hard practice. And your season's on the line now. We are in catastrophic mode on it again. Not as much as it's been in years past with it, but you're definitely in red alert mode. You gotta focus. You gotta focus, and you gotta take your opponent seriously. That being said, the Big 12 is still in play at this point. You don't want to be that team that ends the streak for that. However, I personally do not believe we're going to make it into the playoff at this point. I think that ship has sailed now. However, there is still a chance with all the chaos that is happening in college football right now with ranked teams losing. Yes, there's still a chance to get into the college football playoff, but you got to win out. You have to win out at this point and just say this was a fluke to a very good Baylor team on the road at their house. You got to prove it, and you have to come out strong on those last games at this point. There's a chance. I don't think it's going to happen, but there is still a chance with it. Now, like I said, I think we used up all of our Sooner magic earlier in the season. We're using our life alert right now, but it is not over yet at this point. Yet you have stuff still to play for. But the question is, can you motivate your players to go out and win those next games and possibly still get into the college football playoff? It's not over yet, but can you motivate them, or are they just going to roll over, except this is just one of those games and the season's done at this point? For a fan's perspective, it's just more of the same, a disappointment expectation that we have to expect yearly. And when you have most of your guys returning, the current state of teams winning and losing and making it extremely favorable for the Sooners, and this being supposed to be our year, anything less than going to the playoff is just a downright disappointment. It always seems like, just like our defense, we're always like a step behind, and we need players from the previous year to make that jump and finally reach that promised land. For a fan, that's completely different. For the players, you got to keep focused. I know losing is terrible, but you got to keep focused. Got to keep focused. We got Iowa State, though, next week, guys. Live stream here is in about an hour, so I hope to see everyone here. We're going to kind of delve deeper into the OU Baylor game at this point, look into the rest of college football, and just kind of go from there. So, Boomer Sooner, only one Oklahoma, and I hope to see everybody at the live stream tonight.